to the Turkish Philanthropy Fund Voices of Partners webinar. My name is Didem Altop, and today I'm moderating a wonderful session on the work and activities of the Cemre Fund. We have three very valuable and really super dynamic speakers with us today. Füsun Eczacıbaşı, who's the co-founder and chair of the SAHA Association. İpek Cem Taha, the founding director of Columbia Global Center in Istanbul, and Yörük Kurtaran, the founder and trustee of the Support Foundation for Civil Society. And what's really exciting is to see how these dynamic and eclectic people came together to form yet another organization with a very direct mission on addressing poverty alleviation needs by supporting grassroots organizations. I would really love to learn a little bit more about each of you before we dive into Cemre Fund, because you all have a very deep history in philanthropic activities, both as donors, but also as initiators and enablers and advocates. Maybe I'll just do a round, but for example, Füsun, we know you have an expertise in the arts with your background, but you're also an advocate for human rights, nature preservation, and education. Can you tell us a little bit more about SAHA Association, which is supporting contemporary art from Turkey?
Yeah, thank you, Didem, and good morning or good afternoon. What time is it in the
Good afternoon in America.
Good afternoon to America. So SAHA is a non-for-profit organization, a philanthropic organization founded in 2011. It is our 10th anniversary this year, to support visual arts and artists from Turkey, as you said. And to improve, the mission is to improve their production and development environments and to enhance their interactions with international art institutions. And in Turkey, we have quite an efficient ecosystem. In fact, we have museums, we have galleries, we have art fair, we have many organizations. But a very important pillar of is a support system for the artists in their international exhibitions. This is what we lack. And as you would all know, in most of the countries, this mission is fulfilled by government-supported funds, usually. This was not our case, and we witnessed an urgent need for this aim. And 9 founding members, including İpek here, she has many hats today on this talk. We didn't feel at ease with the fact that not because of the merit, lack of merit, or their qualifications, many of our artists were not included in the international ecosystem, art ecosystem, international art dialogue, or dialogue through art, let's say, because of lack of funds. And we were witnessing it, and we were disturbed by it. And we all believed in civil society. We all believed in transformative power of art, the soft power of art. And also we believe that we can do something with a collective effort. So we wanted to integrate art from Turkey into the universal artistic ecosystem. Okay, we are all very proud of our history, and it's in this part of the geography, there were many civilizations in the past, but what about today? And we should have that cultural dialogue with today's production. And we wanted to see our people to be included there. And so it was a social responsibility for us rather than, a charity organization. This is all I could put it in a nutshell for SAHA. Maybe İpek has something to add about SAHA. She's also a founding member. We are together in this.
Well, Füsun, thank you so much. I mean, you wear so many different hats representing Turkey in the art world. You're a member of the Patrons Council for Art Basel Global. You're part of the International Friends of Documenta, Friends of Castello di Rivola, the Tate International Council, and even the new museum. There's so many, I could keep going. So because you're so well integrated, I think, in the international scene, it's wonderful that you're sharing your own networks and helping create these bridges for Turkish contemporary artists. It's amazing. And of course, it's wonderful to see that you and İpek have collaborated not just on this, but on numerous civil society initiatives involving many, many different topics, not just the arts. And we'll get to that as well. Thank you so much. İpek, it's wonderful to see you. How are you? You're on mute, actually.
Big Zoom FOPA.
Always. Always.
Hi, it's really great to be here with you and also, with Turkish Philanthropy Funds, an organization I truly admire. I think Turkish Philanthropy Funds, just like SAHA, just like Cemre, is doing the very important world of bridging. You know, bridging
Exactly.
you use the word bridge. Bridging is so important for our world today, whether it's bridging between different parts of society, bridging between refugees and a nation, bridging like we're trying to do with Cemre, and the bridging what Turkish Philanthropy Funds does. And so does SAHA. So I think it's one of the maybe common denominators of this evening. That
it may very well be. So
Issues.
İpek, let me set the stage for you to talk a little bit also about the work you're doing as the founding director of the Columbia Global Center in Istanbul. Well, first of all, you have a really dynamic expertise in international relations, public relations, and I kind of summarize it as social impact diplomacy. You know, it's commercial diplomacy is one thing, political diplomacy is another, and you're doing a lot on social impact diplomacy. I made that up, but I think it works. The other thing that's really interesting about your background is, you know, you're an investment banker turned internet entrepreneur turned civil society enabler. So you've worn so many different hats in your career. And then now you're working with the Columbia Global Center in Istanbul, which is connecting, I think, Columbia University to Turkey, but then also Turkey to the other Columbia Global Centers worldwide. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing there?
Great, thank you. I love this social impact diplomacy. Yes, I find myself also in the fields of education and culture a lot. I'm a trustee of Robert College, and I've been a trustee of Işık University. So Columbia University actually is a project. It was almost like a grassroots project with a group from Turkey who were alumni who wanted to see Istanbul on the global map that Columbia has, because, you know, being on that map and being connected to Columbia and being connected to other nodes as a global city, which Istanbul is a global city, it was perhaps the first global city, is really valuable. What we're doing is interesting because we're not doing something traditionally you think a university does. What does a university do? It offers classes and it admits students, but the Columbia Global Centers are research centers of the university in locations such as Mumbai, Rio, Paris, Amman, and Istanbul is among them for the past 10 years as well. The work that we do is a variety of projects ranging from research projects to capacity building to sometimes co-teaching, co-research. So we love to see Turkey on the map, but we love to see also address global issues in Istanbul I hope that gives a
nice overview. I mean,
and also we've established a Turkish Studies Center and a Turkish Studies Chair at Columbia, which we're very proud of.
It's very exciting. I mean, it's really wonderful that we're connected with that whole network as well. And, you know, I think that research is in most countries like Turkey, emerging markets, et cetera, tends to be, you know, undervalued or seen as a luxury, but actually it's a fundamental. When we're creating any type of a theory of change, you need to rely on some data and research and be able to provide context. So the work that you're doing is really important in that respect as well. And of course, all of you are wearing different hats as authors, as journalists as well. You've written books, you're writing articles. So I'm going to turn to Yörük, whom I've known for, well, he's been involved in civil society for 25 years. I've been in Turkey for 25 years. I've known him ever since I got here. But he's here today in his capacity as the founder and trustee of the Support Foundation for Civil Society. But you have an expertise in youth work and youth policy. You have an expertise in capacity building with rights-based organizations, which is very challenging, and grassroots organizations. Would you tell us a little bit about the context of the Support Foundation for Civil Society and anything else you'd like to share about your activities?
I mean, just to put it in simple terms, because you were stressing the importance of this concept of bridge.
Yes.
So really, I'm not making this up, by the way, but the reason why we founded Support Foundation for Civil Society, Sivil Toplum İçin Destek Vakfı, in 2015, and the organization started to work in 2016, is that we would like to, I mean, we wanted to set up a bridge between donors, potential donors, like companies, individuals, and the grassroots organizations and civil society in Turkey, because we know that there are people in Turkey who would like to contribute more to civil society. However, we also know that a lot of people in Turkey only know the organizations that they look at. But on the other hand, civil society is more than what we see, because, you know, from my work in the last 20 years, I know that on the grassroots level, there are a lot of, you know, like very good organizations, good individuals working on the ground directly with people. However, when you go to the civil society side, of course, as they are smaller organizations, they are grassroots organizations, they have less capacity to have access to certain opportunities. So we said, at the end of the day, with a bunch of friends, we could have formed, you know, like an organization that is working on any social problem in Turkey. And we could have justified it on our own terms, because Turkey is one of those countries where you can set up organizations and, you know, like really tell people what the problem is, and you can set up big organizations and work. However, we said that maybe we can do something more with a more multiplier effect dimension, and that was to bridge people with these grassroots organizations. And since 2016, basically we're a grant-making organization, but in the recent years, we also have been involved with providing support to the grassroots organizations based on some form of capacity building. I mean, hopefully at the end of this year, we will be able to raise more than or give grants as 11 million Turkish liras, more or less, in the last 5 years, which I think is, you know, like for Turkey, it's really not bad, let me put it that way, to more than 150 organizations. And of course, we are working based on some thematic funds, and Cemre Fund that our organization has been hosting since last year is one of those thematic funds where we were able to, you know, like get people come together with their intentions, and then we start to build something from that. But more or less, this is what Support Foundation for Civil Society does.
So, you know, one of the things that I find most striking about what you're doing with the foundation is grant making, right? So you're mobilizing people, and then you're helping them qualify respectable, trusted recipients. And you're a private organization doing this. It's a private initiative. And typically, again, in emerging markets, we see sometimes the economic development agencies and other multilateral agencies providing grants, but rarely do we see grant making as a tool. There are very few foundations in Turkey that are actively grant making, which is amazing, I think, setting that precedent as well.
Thank you. I mean, I think just like SAHA, a lot of, I mean, our approach is similar in SAHA, in which we don't own the organizations that we support. It's their work. We provide the support because we know that they are experts, you know, like they are the best people, they are the best organizations. So it's their work, you know, like you need to, I mean, we give the room to them, yeah? But what we can do is to provide support to them at the end of the day. And that's what we can do. So that's what we do. I mean, in simplistic terms, this is a good approach, not only for organizations like SAHA for us, but I think they are good examples of other potential organizations and how they, I think, should be involved with civil society, because I think this is more impactful.
And the grassroots level. So maybe we can switch gears and really dive into the Cemre Fund. So Cemre Fund is one of the funds under the Support Foundation for Civil Society. And I think the three of you, along with some other friends, really kicked it off. how and why did you all join forces? You have such eclectic backgrounds, and I'm always fascinated by different types of thinkers and different types of expertise coming together to co-create. And you've co-created this topic called the Cemre Fund for the purpose of poverty alleviation and supporting grassroots organizations. But, you know, how did this happen? Where did it come from? Maybe Füsun, you might want to take a stab at it. İpek, you might want to chime in.
Okay. I can start. I'm sure İpek has many more to add to it. But if you allow me, Didem, I would just go a bit back than Cemre.
Of course.
Because as we were all locked in last March, immediately after, with the first shock, we all heard that there is a shortage of very important materials like for the healthcare workers, masks or antibacterial material, shields, gloves, those type of things, and everyone was in panic. Just at the end of March, I heard from a friend, again from SAHA, philanthropy is something, it's some kind of a virus. When it is in you, you act in different fields. It's not only one field. Whatever is close to your heart, then you deal with the other area as well. So one of our SAHA members called me saying that there is an urgent need in a hospital to create funds. And immediately, in 1 week, we get organized and we supported that hospital for their emergent needs. And then at the end of March, the beginning of 1st of April, I checked just before this talk, we started our WhatsApp group. Again, we were 9 people. 9 should be a lucky number. In fact, we should remember this for the next organizations. Again, we were 9 people. So flexible, without any structure. We started collecting funds in coordination with the Turkish Medical Association. They were informing us periodically which hospital needs what. And for 4 months, we worked so intensively, and we created huge funds to help them. First, it was for Istanbul, and then for all over Turkey. And for 4 months, we just tried to, we were calling it to, kill a fire with a drinking water or something, because we didn't have fire extinguishers. Anyhow, during those 4 months, we learned more about the other social problems, because then, because of pandemic, some other social problems had a snowball effect. Especially deep poverty and hunger stood out as a very basic problem and a basic human rights issue. We realized that a big proportion of the population does not have a reach to the most basic needs, food, housing. They didn't have it, and poverty leads to a deeper poverty, and it's an endless downward spiral. And because we understood that working the benefits of the flexibility without forming an organization, without forming another association or a foundation, just joining forces and having that multiplying effect is really very efficient. And so we made a research. Another SAHA member is one of the founders of Sivil Toplum Vakfı. And I called her and asking her if they can be an umbrella institution for our new project. They were immediately very welcoming. And then we had our first meeting with Yörük, and the whole story started after that, just to make sure that it is more flexible, and they are doing it so well. Why should we do another organization?
Congratulations. The epiphany that you're sharing right now is quite epic, actually. In civil society, again, in countries like emerging markets like Turkey, we find that every time somebody's starting a new organization, and it's an inflation of organizations that probably don't have the capacity. But when you can co-create and join forces the fact that you're creating both, you have the flexibility to act dynamically, just as you described, and then the efficiency of being under an umbrella organization like the Support Foundation. It's really epic. It's a wonderful example of how you can have flexibility and structure at the same time. İpek, what do you remember from those first early days?
I think, I mean, the genesis of the idea was with Füsun, and it definitely had linked with the pandemic and the aftermath of the pandemic and our experiences during there. It was a matter of heart. We had the heart, we had the will, we had to have the expertise, and that's where Yörük and the team at Sivil Toplumu Destek Vakfı came in. So I think it was wonderful to join forces, as you say. That was the allure of it. Rather than starting something new and flashy and, you know, putting a lot of energy into that, we just wanted to work. I think the other very exciting thing was to kind of this idea of making a difference for the ecosystem as opposed to, so perhaps Yörük will speak more to that.
Actually, let's jump over to Yörük too, because I am curious. I mean, I know that a lot of the work that you do with the theory of change. So, you know, from your point of view, what's the theory of change of the Cemre Funds? And maybe you can share some examples.
I mean, to put it in simple terms, I mean, poverty has been an issue in Turkey. It has been, you know, like one of the problems, a historical problem in Turkey. But of course, since the COVID pandemic started and the economic crisis has been deepening in Turkey, it has become a more visible problem in Turkey. And it's not only a problem in itself, because it has a spill-off effect. I mean, it's a cross-cutting issue. It affects the disadvantages more, which means it affects the women, it affects the children, you know, like it affects the young people, it affects families, it affects, you know, like poor people. So it's a cross-cutting issue also. And I think not only this year, in the coming 5 to 10 years, I mean, I'm really sorry to say this, but poverty will be an issue that we will hear more in Turkey. So that is, you know, like to put it in blunt terms, this is a really problem. When you look at I mean, at the end of the day, of course, civil society has a, you know, like a mission to respond to any social problem. But at the end of the day, governments and the local municipalities, of course, have the most power and the means to intervene because they have more money, they have more opportunities and all that. However, on the civil society level, we also know that civil society is more fastly responding, it's more responsive, it's more energetic, because the more an organization gets bigger, the more it gets slower, bureaucracy comes there and everything. And of course, we have seen this in pandemic also. We are seeing this in a lot of natural disasters. Anything comes up, a new thing, which really breaks up the status quo. Of course, civil society is there to fill the gap. So this has been the case in relation to poverty in Turkey. A lot of civil society organizations and initiatives started to fill this gap, actually. So what we come up with was to support certain civil society organizations, initiatives, so that they are coming up with some model and pilot programs that might be multiplied with other partners, with other stakeholders who has much and more power to replicate them. Because at the end of the day, civil society itself is very powerful, yes, but with the problems ahead, of course, we don't have the necessary the gross need of, or the potential to solve every problem of Turkey. I mean, civil society has a potential to do that. Yes, now we have 1 million Turkish liras. With the donations, we might have 10 million Turkish liras. With more donations, we might have 100 million Turkish liras. Or we might have 1 billion Turkish liras. But we know that that money will not and cannot solve any social problem in Turkey. Of course, it will provide support to solving them. But at the end of the day, what we need to do is to come up with working models, and supporting those models will really give more power to the people and the organizations in the ecosystem who can replicate those models. So in that sense, going back to your question, we are supporting organizations that have a potential to come up with working pilot models, proven models, so that the other organizations with more money, with more opportunities, governmental organizations, local municipalities, will come up, learn from those organizations, learn from these models, so that they will replicate those models in their bigger systems. We think this is a way to go with every social problem that we need to work on. So Cemre Fund, I think, is a good example in which there are working good projects on the ground, but at the end of the day, we know the limitations of them. This does not mean that they are not effective. This does not mean that, of course, they have huge impact on the people on the ground, on the target group. We are reaching thousands of people. But at the end of the day, even with 100,000 people, 1 million people, all of these needs to be replicated by other organizations who has more power and more opportunities. So that's our more or less the theory of change, in which we provide that opportunity for the bigger organizations.
So it feels like your logic of grassroots organizations is also that they are living laboratories, right? So they're working on a local theory of change. It's a pilot project that needs to be expanded, shared and expanded with, with other capabilities and capacity. What are some examples of the partners that you're working with maybe early on?
On the ground, yes. I think Füsun and İpek Hanım may talk about a special project that we have developed throughout the time, but originally, now we have 3 active grants with 2 organizations. One of the organizations is Derin Yoksulluk Ağı, Deep Poverty Network. And the other organization is called TİDER, Temel İhtiyaç Derneği, Basic Needs Association. With TİDER, one of the grants, we support their supply chain so that the organization itself is receiving more and diverse donations, because what they do is they provide support to the food banks within their network. So the more we support the organization itself, we know that the more TİDER will reach out to more people, and that means the more TİDER reach out to the food banks, more people will be, using those food banks. So that's the first thing. And the second one is with the Deep Poverty Network, we again support them organizationally, so that what they do, I think, is magic, in which they really connect the people who are outside any social security system, really like on the ground, with donors directly. So that the donors directly support these people on the ground with some cash transfers, with like basic foods and things like that. But as an organization, as a fund, what we do is we support these organizations in terms of core grants. I think this is important in philanthropy, because we know that a lot of organizations and individuals are more interested in supporting projects. Yes, it is important, as long as the organizations themselves have the capacity to run those programs and projects. So in the 3 grants that we support with these 2 organizations, we support them based on some core funding, but also we support a certain project of them that we co-developed with, which they are co-running it together. But at the end of the day, again, going back, I think I would like to really stress it, as this is a TPF session also, and hopefully a lot of potential donors, organizations are watching us. We do believe, and I think it's really important, that we need to support the organizations themselves with core grant. This is the trend in the world also. More and more philanthropic organizations are supporting not the projects, or along with projects, supporting the organizations themselves, because without organizations, there are no projects. Simple as that.
Yeah, that's a really important message again, and your conversation today is full of epic messages, I think. One is this core grants issue. You're absolutely right. You need the project grants, but you also need the core funding to keep the operations alive, well, and growing. The other thing I think you kind of jumped over is, I think that your grant recipients, you've encouraged them to also work together, right? So you took two different grant recipients and asked them to collaborate on a unique project. So even those type of things, like incentivizing different groups with different expertise and different reach to collaborate, is another way of, I think, really creating efficiencies in the philanthropic activities.
Didem, may I add something there? I think that's very important because on the donor side, I think, people like Füsun Hanım, İpek Hanım, like it's a collaboration on the donor side. Mm-hmm. And when I say a collaboration, it doesn't mean that they put money in the pool. It's more about they are collaborating with the people around them, with their network. They bring their network into the system. So on the donor side, it's more a collaboration. It's not about, like 10 people putting money from their pockets. It doesn't work like that. It's more about putting the connections into the pool. Yeah. On the other hand, with the organizations itself, as you said, yes, it's a collaboration there also. So we think that, of course, let me put it this way. And of course, this is not a Cinderella kind of an epic kind of a thing. Of course, collaboration in itself has problems. It doesn't mean that everything is running smoothly, but at the end of the day, we think collaboration really creates something that is bigger than us. So when you collaborate, it's not about arithmetics, it's more about the geometrical effect. So that's why I think both on the donor side and on the organizational side, programmatic side, we think it's very important to collaborate or provide a platform so that people and organizations collaborate with each other.
And then I add something. Sure. There is also a very important aspect, an element that we should add. It's not about only money that we collect. Creating awareness, creating sensibility towards these issues is such an important element of it. So with Yörük and his organization is doing the grassroots work, and they are on the operation. But we are trying our best to create that kind of awareness, instead of just very simple things, instead of sending a flower, sending a message that, to celebrate your birthday, I have sent food to 10 families. It's something that stays emotionally with people.
Yeah, it's very thoughtful, actually. Yes.
I just wanted to add the component. It's very important, the awareness part. But in addition to that, in terms of return on your money, it's not about getting, $10 or $100 worth of food. When you give that $10, actually, because you work with the right organizations, what gets accomplished is maybe $20 worth of food, or, plus the mobile food bank delivering it to a tiny little street that nobody ventures into. So actually that multiplier effect was also very important for us. Building awareness, the multiplier effect, the ecosystem collaborating, and obviously capacity building within these organizations to service more, to service better, to educate their own people. So it alludes to what Yörük was saying earlier.
It's fascinating. And when you think about the multiplier effect, again, collaboration in terms of not just activities, but also even awareness building. There's so many different layers you can look to for collaboration. And İpek, I think that there's a recent new specific project or special project that Cemre Fund has been developing. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
I think Yörük probably has the metrics better than me, but
maybe you can describe it and we'll ask him to share some metrics.
Is the mobile food bank project. So maybe Yörük can give more metrics and depth on it.
Just to put it in simple terms, as I said, the Deep Poverty Network is in contact with people who are outside this social security system. So they're on the ground. And on the other level, of course, TİDAR is in contact with the food banks. So we said, and of course, there are certain places where basic food cannot be delivered. So what if again, we can create a bridge so that these people will receive, like certain basic products, like weekly, monthly, so that we can come up with a, like a model from there. So there's a truck which is, like deliberately delivering to certain, like streets within the network of Derin Yoksulluk Ağı. And then of course on the background, TİDER is providing support to the whole system through providing some products and everything. But again, at the end of the day, as I said before, I think this is very important. What we do in itself is unique, in which, like everybody is trying to collaborate. I think that's on the one hand important. But again, going back to the limitations of what we do, this is one of the biggest grants that we provide. It's very important for us. Yet, at the end of the day, we need to replicate it more. So that we will learn more from what is working and what is not working on certain geographies. So in that self, again, going back to the discourse that I have put in, so this is about the people who are on the ground, and that's very important. But on the other hand, this is also about providing a working model so that the other organizations can really learn from this experience. And it's not only organizations that are working on poverty. It's also about organizations such as working on women's issue. But we know that women are really facing poverty. It's also about, like youth organizations, because we know that the young people are facing poverty. So this is also about, as I said, maybe sending a message in the ecosystem of civil society in which there might be some other organizations who have other expertise, but yet within their community, since the last 2 or 3 years, have been seeing more poverty-related issues. So can we create a new knowledge, a new discourse, so that the issue of poverty might be mainstreamed in the work of the other organizations also? So all of I think the Cemre Fund experience with the active grants, including the mobile food bank, but the other core grants, is also about mainstreaming the idea of poverty is an issue in Turkey. We need more expertise, we need more knowledge, we need more pilots on the ground, so that with different capacities, we would like to approach this problem from different angles and try to solve it. Because at the end of the day, we think our angle is good and it's working, but it doesn't mean that our angle and our way of working is not or should not be the only way, because you can solve a certain social problem through approaching it from other angles. So in itself, I think, again, Cemre, hopefully, in the long run, will provide that kind of a knowledge to the whole civil society and the government partners.
It's fascinating how poverty is such a kind of a key and common indicator, and then it trickles down into other women's issues and youth issues. It's really interesting to see those different layers. You're absolutely right. So looks like we have a lot. Yes.
May I add some numbers for poverty? Because just 2 days ago, 2 days ago, there was a research titled Turkey's Pulse, which is done, you all know, Metropole Strategic and Social Research, a very respected company. So according to that research, 29% of the population in total cannot fulfill their basic needs like food, 29%. Accommodation, monthly rent. The percentage of the people who says that their income is barely enough for their basic needs is just over 49%. 1/3 of the whole population, entire population, is in deep poverty.
Wow.
And during the lockdown, many people who are in poverty, as I mentioned earlier, pushed down to deep poverty because most were working on daily jobs. They didn't have any social security. The people collecting paper on the streets were only able to earn about 50 liras before. Now, and during pandemic, they were able to earn 20 or 30 liras. The kids were not going to school. They were not able to have one meal a day in the schools. They were having that meal and they couldn't have it. So at home with the 20 or 30 liras, not only one kid, of course, there are more than one. The only food they were able to get was bread and water with sugar. you know.
Yeah.
And it was not only the garbage also became scarce, because the people who collected paper or garbage to resell it, and they grew in numbers.
Yeah.
And many of them moved in because they couldn't pay their rents. And then out of 5, 4 had COVID during those days. And then they sent their little kids to the streets. So it was a horrible, and it is just tumbling down and down. And, you know,
the chain reaction domino effect.
Exactly.
I mean,
and you're not talking about kids having toys or clothes or, you know, we're talking about food. And the thing that, you know, hurts me most, I heard it from Hacer Fogo from the Deep Poverty Organization. She says, the kids cannot dream. They're all stripped down from their hope for the better future. You know, a kid whose parents are garbage collectors, if you ask him or her what he wants to become in the future, he could only reply as a garbage collector. Can you imagine that? No hope for future. That's the deepest darkness.
I mean, we've always had in Turkey this at-risk group. And during COVID, it looks like that whole at-risk group it was like an avalanche. They all slid into the poverty group. And 1/3 of the population is a huge number when you're looking at 70, 80 million people. And of course, you know, it's not just a today problem, it's a long-term problem. If you're having nutritional deficiencies, it turns into health issues. If you're having emotional issues, it turns into, you know, learning disabilities, like a whole bunch of different things. It's a chain reaction. So
exactly.
It's more urgent than maybe just, you know, helping somebody eat a meal for the day. It's a compounding effect. And that's, I think, what Ipek was trying to say, that the return on investment is not just that meal. It's the multiplier effect that it creates in the short term, medium term, and long term.
Didem, may I add something to that? Because at the end of the day, I think it's not only about what we do or what these organizations do, it's also about how you do it. Because at the end of the day, it's not about, I think, helping people, because those people have the basic right to have access to these, you know, like food and other products. It's not about, you know, like we are helping them. They have a right, because they have a right to have access to those food, because they are human beings, they are citizens of this country, whatever, you know. So I think this is very important. So because once we put, I mean, I am also saying that also, but once we put the whole you know, like language in a, you know, like there are organizations who are helping them and then the other ones are being helped, that creates an unequal relationship. Yeah. It's not about that. They have people, I mean, these people have rights, so it's not about helping them. Yeah. Because human dignity, I think, is very important here. So they have a right to have a dignified life. Simple as that.
Right.
So what we do with our partners on the ground, with the 280 donors that have donated to the Cemre Fund in the last, you know, like 8 or 9 months, with more than 1 million Turkish liras, is we don't help people. We provide support so that they have a dignified life, because it is their basic right. Simple as that.
Language is everything. I love that you clarified it. I'm in love with words, and every word has a huge impact. And you're right for clarifying it. Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. It changes the context of the conversation completely. And, you know, obviously there's a lot that still needs to be done. So how can individuals and organizations then support the Cemre Fund? What can we say to our friends through the Turkish Philanthropy Fund who are listening today, maybe through their networks as well? How can individuals and organizations support the fund? Is there?
Who's doing that? Maybe, yeah, maybe I can start, and then of course, İpek and Füsun can of course fill the gaps. I mean, we have a lot of partners working in Cemre Fund. For example, from the UK, I am one of the founders also. There's Turkey Mosaic Foundation, who is supporting Cemre Fund. For example, from within Turkey, we have, as I said, 280 donors, which includes individuals and companies such as Eczacıbaşı Holding also. On the other hand, on the US soil, we know that TPF is also an active partner of Cemre Fund. And thanks to TPF, I think we received a certain amount, a partial amount of their support. But again, TPF would like to get more involved with the Cemre Fund. So I think anybody who is in the network of TPF can also provide support from the US to Cemre Fund by donating to TPF. But as I said, or as my colleagues also said, this is not only about, like money. This is also about bringing connections. This is also about referrals. This is also about, like putting ideas into the pool. So anybody who has, like more or less something to say, who would like to contribute to Cemre Fund, can always reach out to us so that we can start a conversation. Because as we have all been saying, the reason why we are doing it is because we would like to act as bridges at the end of the day.
Yeah, what a meaningful invitation, Yörük. So heartfelt and so spot on, actually. Füsun, did you want to add something?
No, I cannot add more to Yörük, but yeah, spreading the word would help. And also, as Yörük said, for instance, the project we developed with two partnering organizations, with TİDER and the Poverty Organization. So we started that mobile food bank. It was a project just throughout these talks we developed so that that mobile bank could reach to underprivileged areas where any other food delivery company do not want to go. So there might be people under your in this community who could bring out some new ideas. Every mind brings a new idea, so we are open to that. Please just be involved with this problem. That's it.
It's so inclusive. Again, that beautiful invitation. İpek?
I would just say the need is very urgent. Winter is setting in. It's an urgent matter. I think it's very important to support this also not as a one-time, but as a continuous idea, at least for the next several years. The amount is immaterial, but the continuity, the amount is important, but the continuity is just as important. And to bring in colleagues, friends, networks, to donate as perhaps groups of people, as tell family members, it really multiplies in this way and creates a wonderful return, I think.
So thank you. I'm going to say thank you to all of our speakers, İpek Cem, Füsun, Yörük. Cemre Fund is a magnificent initiative. It's born out of a true need, but also true compassion and caring and a theory of change, right? And it's a sense of urgency as well. Thank you to our listeners for being with us on the Voices of Partners for the Turkish Philanthropy Fund. If you are interested in donating, you can look at the donatetpffund.org campaign Cemre Fund site. It will also be posted in various different social media channels. And of course, you can also address Cemre Fund through the civil society support organization directly as well. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to our speakers and thank you to our listeners. Best wishes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Okay.